Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Jarrell Mason, aka Jay Mason. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Album Cover, where we can get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know and give them their flowers while they're here to be celebrated. With me right now, I have a singer, producer, songwriter, Mr. Extraordinaire out of Bmore, Baltimore, Maryland. Everything is good. The crab cakes, the fudge at the fudgery. If you know, you know. And Old Bay
Yeah.
seasoning, which I love. This man has been in the game since the early 90s, ever since he stepped onto the scene with the R&B group Me to You, who was signed to RCA Records. And he got a brand new single which just dropped on Monday. So we're going to talk about that and then some with the one and only Mr. Devon Howard. Mr. Howard, thank you for coming on Beyond
Hey,
the Album Cover and welcome.
thank you so much for having me.
Man, I
Pleasure to be
appreciate,
here.
yes, sir. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on to this humble podcast. If I would have known you would have came on today, I would have asked you to send me some of them crab cakes from Maryland.
I think I might have some tonight, by the way. So,
Yeah, man. Because moving out from, I'm originally from North Carolina, so moving out to
okay.
New Mexico and not being near seafood, it's a struggle. So when I went to
Yeah,
Maryland a couple years ago, you know, I had to tear up some crab cakes and some seafood macaroni salad. If you know, you
yeah, you got
know.
to try the crabs too. The crabs are really good here.
Yes, sir. And if you don't know how to eat crabs, you will learn in Old Bay. You put it on anything and it'll make everything good, whether it's potato
Yes.
chips, eggs, crabs, chicken. I mean, Old Bay,
Yeah, we
just
do. We do.
dump it
Yeah,
on there.
that's the Baltimore way. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, being from B More, how did your love of music start? Did you cut your teeth in the talent show circuit? And who were some of the artists that inspired you to want to get into the business?
well, yeah. So I started with my father was a songwriter too. And I'm the last of five kids, so I didn't really know as much until I started getting older that how deeply in it he was. And he had actually written a song that was out the year I was born, and I didn't even know that until I was in my 20s. And and my father passed when I was 19, so it was a lot of stuff I found out later. But yeah, so for me, he was the biggest inspiration because he would play music all the time in the house, and I would always hear like the oldies and on repeat. And then he would play his guitar, and I was always intrigued by that. So I jumped right in it as a preteen.
Okay. Now, jumping in as a preteen, were you checking out the sounds, what was coming off of 92Q or PGC and getting the lay of the land on what was popping in radio at that time?
Yeah, I was listening to radio. I think back then when I was young, the radio was on because, like I said, I'm the youngest of five. So, my sisters listened to gospel, or you hear Anita Baker, or you might hear my brother would listen to hip hop. And so I was just hearing everything. So the radio was always on. I wasn't really tuned into any particular station at that time,
Mm.
but I was just always hearing music, and so that's just kind of how it was for me. It's like it was always on, it was always playing.
So it was a mixture of everything. You mentioned Anita
A mix is
Baker,
everything.
and you
Yeah.
mentioned Clark's gospel groups like Clark Sisters,
Yeah,
Commission,
exactly.
the Winans, and you had the emergence of all the hip hop that was coming out at that time. So you had a huge gumbo in that musical
Exactly.
pot of yours.
And then for me too, I was always like, I just remember like listening to New Edition, and that's when I realized like, well, I think I can do this. Because when you see somebody in your close to your age, you're like, wow, that's a possibility. So I think that's when I started thinking like, hey, that might be a path
Hmm.
that I could take.
Right. And was it a game changer for you once you saw DC native Johnny Gill come in with being so close, DC and Maryland?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and there's a tie there too, because and Me to You, Stacey Lattisaw, who is a legend, and
Hmm.
she was a child star too, and so her brother was in Me to You,
Uh-huh.
and so Johnny Gill started with Stacey, and so he went to New Edition after that. So we would see them all the time. So it was a huge moment for me to actually even just be around them because, like I said, that's kind of how I wanted to get into the whole thing myself.
Right, right. Which is crazy when you think about Johnny's transition into New Edition, knowing Bobby had got voted out, and once Johnny came in, he really got to showcase vocally what he could do under the right material with the right
Yeah,
producers with Jam and Lewis, because the earlier records, the chemistry and the debut album was great, but the songs didn't really match Johnny's
yeah.
vocal range. But once he got with New Edition, it was game on.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess you got to remember too that he was around 15, 16 years old singing like that. You know what I mean? He was hitting it with those older guys. He was just like, you know, on top of it. And
Mm,
so even the stuff he did with Stacy, they did a duet album too. It was incredible stuff, and they were young. It's like they were singing like, mature adults and they were really young.
yeah, yeah. Because listening to the perfect combination, I'm like, man, somebody's
Yeah.
steakhouse or fast food restaurant missed out on the
Yeah.
golden opportunity for a sponsorship. And I believe Perfect Combination, wasn't it written by Narada Michael Walden?
I think so. It could have been because I know Stacy worked with, I remember like, you would read the credits on the albums,
Mm,
and I
mm,
know that she worked with him a lot back then. So
mm. Yeah, which is crazy. And I bet you probably were somewhere at the Capitol Center when any made their stop for the Heartbreak Tour. Were you or were you not?
you talking about the recent tour that just happened?
No, the Heartbreak Tour in '89 with Bobby Brown,
89.
I'll Be
I did.
Sure,
I
and the
did see
girls
it.
were the opening
Yep.
act.
I saw it in Baltimore. Yeah,
Okay.
I got to see it in Baltimore.
So what was that like seeing, any at their height, and then of course Bobby being on that tour, and then knowing how Don't Be Cruel became the stratospheric album that it became, and to see the early rise of I'll Be Sure, Keith Sweat,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
when you're looking at it now, that was such a monumentous moment in R&B music history when you didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah, that's true. It's because New Edition was my first concert ever. So the first time ever I saw anybody live was New Edition. So just seeing them was always like, wow, like these guys are like A-list. You know what I'm saying? They A-listers. They're
Hmm.
at the top of the game. So it was, it's always a great thing. So when I go to shows like that, I'm always taking it in because it's like this is what needs to happen. This is the work that has to be put in. So I'm just always looking at it from the artist's eye too. So it
Hmm.
was always a great show with them. I just saw them like 2 years ago, year and a half.
Hmm. Yeah, New Edition,
Incredible.
class act, and I'm glad now through the miniseries that they're starting to get their long overdue flowers and being introduced to the social media generation
Yeah,
without
yeah.
putting out any new music.
Yeah, and they still here. So that's the thing is that they still killing it,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. So if you
40
get a
years later,
chance,
they
yes,
still
sir.
on top of the game.
Yes, sir. So if you get a chance to go see any when they come to your town, do so. The heartbreak is still spreading and it's not going to stop anytime soon. Now, with that being said, how did Me to You start?
So Me to You started. I'll make it short because it's a long story. But three of us in Baltimore were in a singing group together, and it kind of didn't work out because it was still early on and we were still trying to figure our own vocal stuff out. We were young, so then another group formed, which was two of the other guys, and then that's how we came back into it. So the other two, us two, came back in. Long story short, it's getting confusing, but and then it just hit. It really took about a year, literally about a year from getting together, rehearsing, and recording, and then we had a deal.
Okay, so was it where when you guys formed and were cutting your teeth, were you all doing the local circuit before getting your deal with RCA, or was it where you guys did the demos and mainly went to New York to go shop?
Exactly, that's exactly what happened. So individually, we were doing our own thing. I think I was in the studio, so I was just kind of honing that thing, you know what I'm saying, the producing and writing and just kind of locking in on that. And so and I'm sure some of the other guys were doing talent shows too, but everybody was just doing their own thing. So but when we came together, um and we were just a couple of us were just getting to know each other. So it was kind of like just a new like just meeting new people at the same time. And then all of a sudden, in a short amount of time, we are headed to New York to shop for deals. And so, we end up signing with RCA.
Now, were there other labels in the bidding war besides RCA, and RCA just won out, or was RCA the one that really made the strongest pitch to sign you all?
Yeah, I think we auditioned for six, and I think they all wanted us, and we just went with RCA.
Okay. I wonder if Atlantic was in the mix.
I can't remember so long ago. I can't remember. I think Jive was there. So,
Drive was in the
but
mix.
it was a long time ago.
Okay. All right. So you guys signed with RCA and explain the process of going into the studio and recording the album.
Yeah, so we had already started. Okay, so I wrote two of the songs. Like our demo was two songs that I had written with Kevin Jackson, and so we had already did that. So they ended up on the album. Um, Back then you really don't have a hand in what songs they kind of pick the songs for you, sort of thing, and they kind of shape the album. And so we just started going in with different producers and just knocking it out. And everybody sings, so it wasn't as complicated necessarily, because everybody could have done any parts. But usually that was up to the producer. So we just kind of went through the process fairly quickly because we were done within about 8 months. We would finish the album.
Wow, that's amazing. And you mentioned with being in a group where everybody can sing at the drop of a dime, that it's pretty much a Swiss Army knife where a producer necessarily doesn't have to focus on maybe one or two guys. Whereas, hey, okay, you take this, you take that, you take this, you take that, or you look at the song and figure out who vocally matches the mood and
Yeah,
tone of the record.
and that's usually what happened because like those guys can really sing. Like those guys are real singers. See, I didn't come from a singing background per
Mhm.
se, because again, my father was a writer, so I was writing more at first, and then of course you have to start singing to to your song. So that's how it came about for me. So those guys were like soul singers, R&B singers. It covered everything, all the range, all the emotions. So it was really up to the producer to choose like who fit what song better.
Mm, and I Want You Back, the video, great video, style of the video, very 90s. I remember the combat boots when
Definitely.
I was a kid. If you remember the airbrush tees, airbrush jeans, airbrush jackets,
Yeah,
you probably got them in the closet somewhere from that little kiosk in the mall back in
I
92,
do.
93.
I still have my shirt. I still have my shirt.
Yeah, man, because I remember as a kid seeing the kiosk outside of our local video
Yeah,
store where you would get the airbrush made for your t-shirt, your jacket, your license plate, and it was
yeah,
all
yeah,
the rage. I mean, kids, you had to be there. But to the video, in the video, there was cameos by a young Whitney Williams when she was at
yep,
Hot 97, and then also label mates at the time of yours, SWV. So what was that like
yes.
seeing SWV and then seeing their rise once they took off?
Yeah, and so and Big Lance was in the video too.
Okay.
She did choreography for us. So yeah, so SWV, they were just starting. That was their first album, but they had already hit and they were already in motion. You know what I mean? So, and it
Mhm.
was getting bigger. And I think around the time that they were in the video, Week had just started, and Week was their blockbuster. And
Mhm.
it was cool because we were around them a lot, and we actually toured with them in England.
Okay.
Um, for a couple weeks, and that was cool too. But we would see them a lot, as and with labels. A lot of times, promotional stuff. A lot of the groups would be kind of together, so we would
Mhm.
come across them a lot on the
Yeah,
road. So
yeah, and you mentioned Weak SWV Monster Smash, written by Brian Alexander Morgan, who
yeah,
I'm glad is getting his flowers. He's to
yeah,
me one of those ones. If you know that
yeah,
man's name, you know the songs,
yeah.
and
He is incredible. He an incredible writer, producer, singer.
and then looking on the album credits, I believe Ron Fair played keyboards on y'all albums, correct? On that
Well, yeah,
album, right?
actually he produced one of the songs for Goodbye Girl, and
Okay.
it was actually supposed to be on the saxophone player's album, Warren Hill. And I guess I don't know why it ended up on our album instead, but he produced it, which was incredible because he's a super huge producer. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Christina Aguilera, he did a lot of people over the
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah, and I believe he was responsible for bringing Christina Aguilera in and signing her to RCA, I believe.
Yes, yeah, a lot of people, like he just had his finger on the pulse of what was going on at the time. Keisha Cole, he worked with a lot of people.
Definitely a heavy hitter. And you guys also had Three Boys from Newark on the album,
Yes.
Vincent Herbert
Yep.
and those guys. So what was it like working with them? Then of course seeing, when Lady Gaga hit and knowing that Vincent Herbert had the attachment to bringing Lady Gaga in.
Um, yeah, it was interesting, but again, everybody was young. You know what I mean? And so, and again, Vince was at the beginning of his thing because when we were working with him, he had Braxton's How Many Ways, and he was working with a lot of people at one time. So, yeah, but he was just you could see that he was going to, you know, get you where he got.
Hmm.
So he had a really good ear for music and a really good eye for talent.
Hmm. And who are some of the other groups in addition to SWV that you guys hit the road with?
Wow, it's a lot. So, in that era. See, you're taking me back now because I haven't had to think about this in a long time. But anybody who was out in in the 90s, like Shy, you know, all the boy bands, you would always come
Hmm.
across the boy bands, High Five, all those guys. So we would see people all the time.
So it was a lot of, crisscrossing different tour paths
Yeah,
or
yeah.
hopping on. So like you could be on with Shy, you could be on with High Five, you could be
Or
on with
whoever was out at the
Intro,
time.
Portrait,
Yeah, yeah.
whoever
It was
was out.
definitely intro for sure because they toured with us with SWV. But a lot of times like with festival shows, there's a gazillion acts on the show, so you kind of come across people all the
Hmm.
time, like especially doing shows like those big festival shows.
Yeah, festivals and spot dates. I mean, this was back
Yeah,
when Budweiser Superfest used to be popping. Al
yeah, yeah,
Heyman
yeah.
production. If you know, you
Oh
know.
yeah, you good. You got a good memory.
Yes, yes, sir. Like I said, this era, my wheelhouse, grew up in it. My favorite part of music and all night. That to me was the crown jewel on the album. So tell me how all
Yeah.
night came about.
So all night, I can't think of the writer's name, but yeah, he came with the song, and that was one of the earliest songs we did too. And it was instant, like you kind of knew instantly that this was a hit. This was a record. And again, our studio sessions happened so fast because everybody was so quick. Everybody, we didn't need a whole month to do one song. It was like done in a day or two, couple of days.
Mhm.
And so at this point, I've recorded so much I can't recall like, the session, but um I just remember being in there with that and it just happened so quick. Everybody loved the song. I think that's one of the songs that everybody wanted to sing on too. We only chose two people, but everybody wanted to sing on it.
So it was like not enough basketball to go around, especially like I
Exactly.
mentioned earlier, how you have all five that can sing. So it's tough when you're like, okay, you take it, and everybody else in the background. But that's where, at least in my opinion, from the outside looking in, being in the group, you got to put that ego to the side and know that, hey,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna get my shots up regardless. But it's just that the producer or writer wants to lock in to this particular person here because, like
yeah.
I said, it matches the tone and feel of the record.
Yeah, for the most part too, we didn't have an issue with that. So I think everybody was okay with whoever did it. It's still a group song. It's still our song, even though somebody else is singing it. So and it sounds good. The way that it
Hmm.
was done sounds perfect. So
Right. And another perfect record, Raindrops, because there's a clip on YouTube of you guys singing it a cappella on video LP hosted by
yeah,
Madeline Woods. And I mean, you guys really get to show off your vocal prowess because each one of you get to show what you can do. And to me, that was another standout song on the album.
yeah. So that's the song. That's one of the songs that I wrote, right? And it's funny because when we met up for the first time, I was flipping through one of my songbooks because back then you just wrote songs lyrically. There was no music, it was just lyrics. And I was trying to find something that we could break it up into four parts. And that was it. When we got to it, so we started singing that song from the very beginning,
Mm.
and then Kevin Jackson added music to it, and then it ended up on the album.
Okay, so you guys put out the album and you guys are touring. Was there plans to do a sophomore album or what ended up happening after that?
Yeah, it was a plan to do that. It didn't work out. Sometimes business get in the way, and we're young and we're still learning, and we're growing. A lot is happening, and so it just didn't work out.
hmm So when that fell through, did you step back and take a break from the industry for a bit, or did you keep going and then just manage to just plow through?
Yeah, so for me, I had other people coming at me for different things, writing, singing, other deals or whatever, but I did need to take a break because, again, when you're young and you are kind of just thrusted into the business, it's a lot that happens, and it's fast and it moves really quickly. And you have to kind of reset and readjust and then kind of figure out what it is that you want out of it. You know what I'm saying? Opposed to somebody telling you this is what it's going to be for you. You have to decide what do you want out of it. Because you start seeing people losing their mind. You know what I'm saying? They're going crazy because they're dressing different than who they are. They're singing songs that it's not about that they can't necessarily relate to. And just the machine is behind them. And great, you can hit, but then you kind of lose yourself in it. And I knew early on that I didn't want that to happen to me. And so there was a reset. And then eventually three of us got back together and then we formed Diversity, and two got together and formed Prophet Jones, and they did well as well. So
Yeah, Mr. Prophet Jones' Lifetime, a staple
yeah,
record. Once
yeah.
that record popped, and how old were you when you guys signed your deal with RCA?
We were between 18 and early 20s.
Okay, so late
Yeah,
teens, early
majority
20s.
in teens, right?
Okay, so coming into the business at that young age, no roadmap, no manual, and once you get in, you kind of realize like, oh, it's more than just the glitz and glam of being on Video Soul and being on the Countdown with Walk Baby Love. It's 90% business, 10% show. And if I
Yeah,
don't know the
yeah,
business, I'm gonna get taken advantage of because there's some
yeah,
things called points, recoupables, advances, and everything else. And we've seen the horror stories over the years from groups that gotten taken advantage
yeah.
of when they signed raw deals.
And when you're young, you don't know much about that, right? You're just singing and writing, and that's kind of it. You don't really know about publishing or mechanicals or whatever. You don't know any of that, and so you're kind of learning it in the field,
Hmm
right? And
hmm
like I said, it moves really fast. Like you're when you're gone for months at a time, and every day from morning to night, you're doing stuff. And so
hmm
you don't have a time to stop and just say, hey, let me just kind of reset and refocus. You're going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, getting up at seven, you know what I'm saying? It's like that. And
hmm
so it's like, and every day is different. So you have to kind of just reset.
Yeah. One big hamster wheel because, like you said, you come from doing a show, you go to the next city on the bus, then you get up at 4, maybe 5 to prep for that morning show interview at your local radio station.
Yeah,
Then you go do kids. This is pre social media, pre where you could talk directly to the artist. You would go to do an in-store signing at
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Coconuts Warehouse, The
yeah,
Wiz, Waxy
yep,
Maxie's. If you know, you
Tower,
know.
yep,
Camelot. If you know, you know.
yeah.
And you'll do some in-store signings, and then you'll probably go do some more press. And if you got a show, you'll go do a show, and it's wash, rinse, repeat.
All the time, and it was just like that. And then you got to throw in random photo shoots, you know what I'm saying, at video shoots and interviews at video shoots. So a lot of stuff happens in one day. So you're shooting
Mm-hmm.
the video, but you're also doing a photo shoot for a magazine. You're also doing interviews for other situations, and then you get done with that at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you got to get right back up, and the next day is a whole bunch of other stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then they throw on top of it, oh, Black Beat want to do something with you. Fresh want to
Yeah,
do something with you. Word Up want to do something with you. And you're like, man, I'm tired. Can I just go relax at the pool at the Comfort Inn or
yeah,
something? Like,
yeah,
nah, man, it's a business. Like Billy
yeah,
told
yeah.
Prince in Purple Rain, it's a business. And that
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. And it's cool too when you're young, you can kind of handle a lot of that,
Mhm,
getting up and going. I think sometimes for me, a lot of times I felt like we were walking into situations that I don't even know. Sometimes we showed up and I didn't even know what we were about to do, you
mhm,
know. Is it an interview? Is it a show? Is it, what I'm saying? You kind of like, okay, it's just so much, it's moving so fast. Um, and a lot of times it's intriguing and then it's like okay like it kind of starts to get to you after a while. It's like okay, I need to take a nap. I need to go home. I need to
mhm.
take a minute. Give me a weekend.
Mm,
And you hear a lot of artists say that, like, early on in your career for sure, it's just kind of go, 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 especially back then.
hmm.
Now it's different because a lot of stuff can happen online.
Right. And
But
then
back then it was all out in the field.
yeah, and like back then too, you also had to stay in everybody's faces because
Yeah,
it was if you took too long of a break, public will forget you. But it's probably worse now because of social media where there's so much content pumping out that you gotta stay with content because it's here today, gone today. Whereas
right.
back then, at least you had some type of filter or middleman to go through where now that's cut out and now you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go
yeah,
direct to
yeah.
consumer.
Yeah, exactly. Which this era I like, because of that. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a lot of the red tape is gone.
Hmm.
And I can kind of do it the way that I see it and feel it. And and I'm in it. It's me.
Hmm.
And I don't have I management, you know, for a long time I decided not to do that. Labels, I have my own. Just so that I can maintain a sense of control over the creative part of it and even the business side of it, because I know all the business stuff that
Hmm.
I need to do to make what needs to happen happen. And but I just needed to separate myself from all that stuff because it becomes noise after a while, and then the creative part starts to suffer because now you don't know what's going on over here. You got to start
Hmm.
thinking about and worrying about stuff over here, and then it's time to get in the studio. You don't feel like it, or you're tired, or you're not inspired by anything.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? Let me just kind of do my own thing for a minute, and not that that's a bad thing because at some point that's you need it. But
Hmm.
at that particular point for me, I just needed to kind of separate myself, get back to the music, get back to what I loved about it, and then start putting stuff out on my own.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Then I'll double back for all the other stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, because back during that time, it was rare for artists to really be as intertwined with the business end because you had buffers at the labels that would probably only give certain things to your management, and then you come
Yeah,
to find out later, like, oh, there's a double set of books here.
yeah,
Somebody got greased a little bit with some paper bags and some other things, some cards with some party
yeah,
favors.
yeah,
If you know, you know. Because read the
yeah.
book Hitman by Frederick Dannon, and it explains to you how the music industry is not as sweet as you think it is. I mean, a lot of those older labels, especially, still some to this day, where come across somebody wrong, you may end up like Bird getting dangled off a
Right,
balcony because you asked too many questions outside of office hours.
right. Yeah, and it's a business. I always tell people who I've worked with or younger people, it's a business. Just know the business too, because you'll walk into situations, they'll tell you all the right stuff. You feel like you're about to blow, you're getting in the studio, you feel like you're living out your dream, but they're handling business and you're not privy to that information. And so for me, I just want to know the information. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I want to walk into the rooms too. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be waiting for somebody to come back and tell me, oh, this is the deal, this is what's happening. No, I'm going to be in there too to hear for myself and to negotiate it
Mm-hmm.
my with my people. So
Right.
yeah, so that's I always tell them that, yeah, this is not as much of a dream as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the dream job. This is you have to love this type of job to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you still gonna love it if you sign to a label and then you come to find out the person that championed you got canned, new people comes in and they say, oh, we're gonna shelf you. And here's the
Yeah.
thing, we own the rights to that album, so you cannot take it with you to another label. You gotta start from
Yeah.
scratch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got it's and that's so many people go through that. Like we were fortunate enough as me to you to not have to do that. We were lucky enough to come out. So that was a blessing for us. Is that
Mm-hmm.
because it opened the door for us as we moved on for Prophet Jones to happen, for diversity to happen, for me to do what I'm doing now. It
Mm-hmm.
opened that door,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, so was there any one person in the building at RCA that championed you guys to the higher ups and was really going to bat for you all?
Um, I think we were again fortunate enough, like we were all already coming into the door, coming in the door. It was like we were already kind of that group that they knew what they were going to put out.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have to fight as hard because it was already planned like they're coming out. This
Mm-hmm.
is the era of male groups, female groups, whatever. They have everything. Everybody can sing. It's a nice looking group. All the songs are nice. They're coming out. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So we didn't. I don't think that we were in the group of people that were going to get shelved. We weren't. We it was already known that we were going to. They really pushed us from the beginning. RCA Records did our production come to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They pushed us from the beginning
Mm-hmm.
with that in mind, knowing that we're gonna make
Yeah.
some noise.
Yeah. So you guys were going to get over. So when they had those board meetings and they're
Yeah.
going around the roster, they say, me to you. Great group. When are we going to release them? Are we going to release them in quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four? Let's go with quarter two because we don't want to release it when XYZ is coming out and
Yeah.
ABC is coming out because we want to make sure they have that big of a push. Okay, what's going to be the lead? What's going to be the second single? Now, if I were to had worked in the music business, that was my dream job to work in the business. But
Mhm.
to fill out the intricacies of knowing, okay, what's going to be the lead, what's going to be the follow up, because if you have the wrong lead and the wrong follow up, that can tank a group. Also, if your sequencing on your album sucks, you can have
Yeah.
a great
Yeah.
album, but if your sequencing is
Yeah. That's
off,
important. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
then you're trash.
But yeah, so we like again, everything happened for us fast. We got together within a year, about a year. We were signed. 6 months after we signed, maybe 7 to 8 months, we were finished the album, and a few months after that, the first single came out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like a wait type of thing. Some people wait a half a year later before something comes out on the album. It was just happening quick. So we were just like I said, constantly moving, constantly going. So we were lucky. We were lucky because then you start hearing the stories like, oh yeah, our album is on the shelf. We had a great album, but it got shelved, and it could be simply that the A&R left, or and the next A&R want their own people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to put out somebody else's people.
Right.
The president could have left, and
Mm-hmm.
then they just shelve everybody who hasn't come out yet, and they'll leave the people who are already hidden. So
Yeah, because like I mentioned earlier, we have horror stories from artists who got shelved because Neo, he was originally signed to Columbia, went under the government name, recorded a full album, everything, got shelved, and then of course years later he ended up getting signed to Def Jam and being the huge superstar that he is. Now I want to swing back to another Baltimore-based group. What was it like when you first heard rumblings of Drew Hill and then seeing their takeoff, were being managed at the time by and discovered by Hiram Hicks, I believe.
yeah, so because this is going way back, but when I heard them, I just like they got it. This is gonna be big. I knew that from single one, right? And again, everybody could sing, and so they could have just went any direction with it. But um, I just felt like they were going to be big stars, and they were, and they are, And so, everybody's proud of the hometown group. So yeah, that was I remember tell me what you
Tell
want was
me,
the
tell
first
me,
single.
tell me,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I remember that. It was big. It played a lot here.
Yeah, yeah, which was on the Eddie soundtrack and I believe was written and produced by Stanley Brown. And this
Hmm.
generation of kids now know Tell Me as a means of act right because they're using the Drew Hill bounce and Tell Me
Right,
as a
right, right.
way of you're gonna give me 20 Drew Hills.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They were definitely different too. They came at the end of the group wave, right?
Mm,
And they stood out immediately.
mm.
You know what I'm saying? They just stood out. So and they still relevant today to me. I think that if they drop something that they can still they're one of those groups that can
Right,
still have some relevancy in this time.
right, right. And I'm curious, do you know if Rough Ends is from around that area as well?
They're in Baltimore as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, which is crazy because No More crossover hit and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
Someone to
yeah,
Love
yeah.
You. Be More, especially DMV, when you think of DMV, which is for those that don't know, DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, you tend to think of Go Go, but it's more to DMV than Go Go. And we mentioned the R&B groups coming out of Be
Yeah.
More and everything like that.
Especially Be More. Yeah, when you think of Be More, definitely R&B. This is hip hop R&B based, especially hip hop now more so, but R&B based city, right?
Mm,
And I'm telling you, the talent here is incredible. Like you can literally have 2 dozen superstars out of Be More just on talent, and just incredible talent. Like when I think of Drew Hill, those guys can sing. When I think of, you know what I'm saying, Ruffins, those guys can sing. Me to You, Prophet Jones, those guys can sing. You know, a lot of people, you know, and so when you think of Baltimore, that's kind of what you think of. These are singers.
mm,
There's not nobody playing around with it. They they can go. You know what I mean? And
mm.
so and there's so many other people here like that. Like Baltimore, I just wish that someday, you know, all these people, we got a lot of great talent here.
I mean, Be More is known for more than just the wire, people.
Yeah, 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 exactly. But I mean, even on the hip hop side, there's just so many really good people here. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this is a hub for really real deal talent.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's good,
Yeah, hone your
you know, like New
craft.
York.
Yep, yep, hone your craft. Go down to that harbor, get your reps up, go get hired at the fudgery, sing
Yeah,
while you
yeah.
make me my
Uh,
double decker chocolate fudge and all of
yeah,
that
yeah,
good
yeah,
stuff,
exactly.
or while you're sprinkling the Old Bay on the crabs. I mean, it's
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there. And then, of course, if you want to, you can drive on down to DC, down 495, and cut your teeth there as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just this whole area is just incredible. Like even just going out to live music stuff, like a lot of people do live shows
Mm-hmm.
just in the area. And they're incredible. Like it's incredible singers
Mm-hmm.
and
Now,
hip hop artists.
yeah, yeah. Now, flashbacking back to the 90s, we mentioned a lot of the male R&B groups that was out at the time. What makes you think of that era being so special with you guys, Shy, Silk, Intro, Color Me Bad, and we can go down the list of all of those groups. What do you think made that era special for not only male groups but also female groups as well? Because it was that deep for females as well.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Um, it was like I don't know. I think with New Jack Swing coming into play around that time and just changing up everything coming out of the 80s and everything just kind of swinging and everything was a lot of image based stuff. The images has shifted into more like a more urban Timberland boots, baggy pants, you know what I'm saying, and more swag. Um, it started to feel like the new Motown or 60s era with all the groups were out, you know, on
Hmm.
shows, everybody's in the group. And it started feeling like that in the 90s. Like everybody wanted to be in a group. Everybody wanted to kind of, you know, all the talent shows were popping at that time. So it just kind of reminded me of the era of like I don't just not Motown, but that whole era of 60s when all you have all these groups just like just hitting Temptations and you know Smokey Robinson, the Miracles and the Manhattans and you know all these people. It's like incredible groups.
Hmm.
And it just kind of was that all over again.
Yeah, it's definitely that. And the major player in that movement was Uptown Records. Rest in peace, Andre
Yeah,
Harrell. And I think
yeah.
Uptown's legacy and impact should not be a mere footnote because they are just as important as Motown is to American pop culture. Uptown
Hmm.
has just as much of that same influence given from Father MC, Jodeci,
Yeah,
Albie
yeah,
Shore,
exactly.
Christopher Williams, Mary J. We could
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on
yeah.
and on. So talk about the legacy and influence of Uptown from you being inside of the machine during that time and seeing it up
Yeah,
close.
so it really like I said, it shaped the culture that came after it or because of it, right?
Hmm.
Like again, in the 80s, everybody was just still buttoned up, you know, everybody still had their little shiny jackets on if you were in the group, like it was still that. And Uptown kind of took it back to the street. Like, let's keep it real. Let's keep even when Mary came out, right? Mary
Hmm.
was like that the round the way girl, right?
Hmm.
Timberland boots, baggy pants, fitted cap. You know, she was just swagged out. And so it just kind of opened that door to show us the way that we were and not the way that the industry tried to portray us
Right.
as you know as artists and they just now as you see now it's still in effect today. People go out as themselves. Like you can go on tour in a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans and you know what I'm saying, you don't have to put on a suit anymore, you don't have to put on nothing shiny anymore. And Uptown kind of started that whole movement, you
Hmm.
know, and that swag, like even with Jodeci, just to kind of have that more urban bad boy image that didn't exist before that.
Mm-mm.
Didn't exist before that.
Nope, because if you look at the 5MC Treat Them Like They Want to Be Treated video, they were in suits, pretty much like how Guy was on the
Yeah,
cover of the 88 debut. They
yep,
were in suits singing, but of course, once they got into Uptown and with Diddy and said, look, we're going to ditch the suits and we're
yep,
going to go Timberlands, combat boots, the vest, the White Sox hats. It was a
yeah, yeah.
match made in heaven, but if you know, all of them cut their teeth in the gospel circuit. Casey and JoJo, Little Cedric
Oh yeah,
Haley, and gospel singers, and of
yeah,
course,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dalvin and Devontae, coming from the gospel circuit as well. And, just seeing their influence and how you mentioned everybody can now be themselves. You not have to be as buttoned up. And I
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah,
think too, BBD played a part in that as well because when you look at
yeah,
what they did with Ronnie, Mike, and Ricky coming
yeah,
from New
yeah.
Edition, and we know New Edition suited and booted
Yeah,
routines
silk,
because that's the
all the silk, all the glitter, all the sequins, and again, that was an idea of what a star's supposed to look like,
mm,
you know, 80s on back.
mm,
And with Uptown, with BBD, people started to do what the culture looked like,
right.
So when you go in the city or you go into the hood, you go wherever you're going in our neighborhoods, this is what we look like.
Mm,
And so the brilliant idea was like, let's bring that to the box, the TV. Let's put that in the videos. Let's put that on stage. Let people see themselves. And I think that's when we start, because that's when people start realizing, like, oh, I can do this. I
mm,
don't have to dress up. Like girls were like, I don't have to put on no sequin dress to be seen. I can just come out and this is how I dress. I can dress like Mary. Then now you got Keisha Cole. You got all these other people, you know what I'm saying? All these other girls now that who are comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm going to be my bamboo earrings. I'm going to do it my way." Same thing with the guys. Everybody's just coming as they are.
mm. And what was your thoughts when you first heard and saw Boys to Men when Motown Philly came out, and how, with them, they went to stratospheric heights once Enter the Road really took off, and then the Monster of Two and everything after that, and how, they took everything that came before them, and with Michael Bivins marketing savvy and
Hmm.
their sound and look really gave Motown, I think, the past look of the groups of yesteryear, but with a new school twist.
Yeah, and that's the thing with them is that very clever, very well put together, very well thought out. The imaging, the records, they got classics, and that's the thing is that I think that era was the end of the classic records, the ones that you would play for the next 100 years, right?
Mhm,
I'm not saying that nothing's as good, but it's just that we have so much music now that
mhm,
nothing sticks around long enough to get to being a classic.
right.
But they were able to kind of bridge the gap between the old and the new, so
Mhm,
they can still dress up in suits. You know what I'm saying? They can still dress down and they
right.
can still sing the ballads. They can still dance, to up tempo records, and they can still do the classic records that crossed over because that was the difference with them too, is that they crossed over, and they had more mainstream records as an R&B group, and we didn't see that as much with a lot of the other groups.
Yeah, because like mentioned, right look, right sound, and then when It's So Hard, Say Goodbye to Yesterday came out, it was really one of the first times during that era where you had a cappella record
Hmm.
below on the radio, because originally it was done by GC Cameron for the Cooley High soundtrack
Oh
for the
yeah, yeah,
Cooley
yeah,
High
yeah.
movie, and how
Yes.
once Boyz II Men really put their spin on it, it pretty much launched them. And then, of course, as we know, Boys to Men was the template that inspired, the newspaper ad for what was to later become Backstreet Boys, because the creator wanted a Boys to Men sound with a New Kids on the Block look.
Yeah, 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 exactly. I mean, again, New Edition, BBD, Boys to Men, Jodeci is kind of like the template for all the other groups that came after that,
Mhm,
right? So
right.
you were like, with Jodeci, you get Drew Hill. With Jodeci, you get what's the guys out of Atlanta? You
Jagged
know,
Edge.
Jagged Edge. You getting it's like that's the template. I mean, they doing their own thing too and got great records or whatever, but they opened that door for that to exist. And Boys to
Hmm.
Men, you got All for One and all these other groups that came that were crossing over urban, but can dress up too. So it
Right,
was just they were the template
right,
for
right.
all that it came after.
Right, and it was authentic too because a lot of those R&B records end up crossing pop. Freak Me by Simp
Hmm.
was a pop hit. Knocking the
Yeah, yeah,
Boots, H Town was a
yeah,
pop hit. And when you're thinking about the content of those records, especially being around 93, 94, you're like,
yeah.
oh, you can play this on pop radio during afternoon drive? Do you know what they're
Right.
talking about? They ain't talking
Good.
about
Yeah,
licking
yeah.
up and down ice cream, I can tell you that.
Well, I think what happened was I know in the 80s, radio was kind of one thing at one point, right? Early, I think late 70s, early 80s, like when you turn on the radio, you would hear disco, you would hear pop, you would hear rock, you would hear R&B, soul records, whatever. You would hear everything on one station. And then somewhere along the way, they started separating everything.
Hmm.
And then, and coming to the 90s, then you started having these kind of hybrid stations that played R&B and pop.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You didn't really hear like country or anything else, but you would hear R&B and pop. And
Hmm.
so a lot of people started crossing over. Like
Right,
Week went to number one on the pop charts. So a lot of people were getting big records on the pop charts in the 90s. And it was that was a new kind of a new thing. I mean, you would have people like Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, Prince, and Whitney in the 80s who were doing that as well. But they were a top tier artists for a long time. So we would expect that. But when people are coming out the gate, first album, number one pop record, that wasn't, you didn't see that as much
right.
till the 90s kicked in.
Right. And I was curious, did Me to You ever do a show or any shows with Troop?
No, I don't think we did any Troop shows. I, Troop is 80s, more 80s
Yeah, yeah,
into 90s.
yeah, Troop was 80s and then Deepa came out in 92.
Okay, right. So I think we were out right after all of, because there's a quarantine when people are out. So a
Mm,
lot of times people are out, they're gone and work on the next album, take a break or whatever.
mm,
And then we were kind of out right after all of that.
right. Yeah, Troop, another group who,
Yeah,
I
I
love.
listened to them a lot. Yeah.
Especially seeing, Steve doing his thing as a writer, as a producer
Yeah.
for other acts. And then,
Yeah.
I had a chance to interview Steve and he told me how Gas to Be came about. It was where an exec at Sony was a fan of Troop and he told him, hey, I got this young group and I want a record similar for them that would be like a Troop record. And that's how Gas to
Right.
Be came to be for B2K.
Wow. Wow. But
You
yeah, he's
know,
a great writer too. So, but again, growing up, that was one of the groups, another group that I would listen to and like, wow, you know what I'm saying? They were doing it. You know what I'm
right,
saying? They were huge.
right.
So they fall into that landscape of influences as well.
Right. And then one group who, like I said, I'm glad pop wise, everybody knows their impact and influence, but also R&B side, they were an R&B group before the pop phenomenon took off. New Kids on the
Hmm.
Block. Because if you think about them, to think about how a black man created the world's biggest pop group, wrote and
Yeah.
produced all their stuff. And the one thing I got respect for New Kids is they always mention, hey, New Edition did this for us. This
Yeah,
group
yeah,
did it for
yeah.
us, and always
Yep.
made it be known like, hey, we ain't started this. They
Right.
did, and we're doing our own thing with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it was definitely clear that they were the spin on New Edition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fortunate part for them is that their market, usually your market is people who look like you, you know, and so they were able to hit that market hard. And of course, they were really good dancers and singing and everything. So it was almost inevitable because they had a blueprint.
Yep. And they did put out a bootleg video of Please Don't Go Girl that was on BT back in the
Right,
day before they reshot the better version at Coney
right.
Island. And then we're seeing now with their impact and
Wow.
influence with the Vegas residency and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
after that. So definitely want to give New Kids their props and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. They
Now,
they were really good as well.
now with streaming is where I think this generation they don't really have the feel and sense of going to the store, getting that physical touch of that cassette, of that vinyl, of that CD, tearing the plastic, looking at the credits, but also you can just immediately skip something that you don't like because when you pay 11.95, 12.95, or 20.95,
Yeah,
depending on what area you're in for that tape or that CD, you're gonna really treasure it and listen to it. But on the business side is where it's not in the artist's favor because how you gonna tell an artist split a fraction of a penny? And
yeah,
let's
yeah,
say you
yeah.
get a million streams, but you're only getting a fraction of a penny, and the
Right,
payout doesn't add up, so the math doesn't make sense.
right. And that's the thing about business again is that when you start thinking about it, once streaming started to take off, somebody's sitting there crunching those numbers like, oh, we can take this because now is not as transparent.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You don't know what you're getting. You don't know, so you can hear the breakdown, but then it won't make sense until you get a check and like, wait a minute, what is this? And you get the same amount of even more airplay than what you would get on FM stations or whatever, and or you get more play. Um, but the numbers are definitely different. But it's business. Like you just got to really understand the business. That's why, again, it's best to be your own boss, right?
Hmm.
It's best to understand to go just study this stuff and just understand like, oh, if I put this up, this is what I expect back
Right,
in return.
right,
I'm the publisher. I'm the the label. I'm
right,
managing myself, or I bring somebody else in to work with me, but I'm clear on what it is that I want to do.
right. Yeah, because it was like Prince was trying to tell people early, like, "Hey, go
Yeah,
ahead and start
yeah,
do it yourself."
yeah. And the thing is that that was pre-streaming.
Hmm.
That was long before streaming. So, and Michael was a businessman too. Michael Jackson also, like he understood it back then enough to the publishing part of it. Like, oh, okay, publishing is where the money at. Okay, I know I get my money as an artist and I get my money from my songs, but if I own other people's songs, then I get a part of that too. And
Right,
that was brilliant. He
right.
could have stopped singing after that. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can't.
Nobody's ever done that before.
Yeah, because you can't fault him for taking the game that Paul McCartney gave him and then
Right,
turn around buying the Beatles catalog and then licensing out Revolution for a Nike ad.
right. Yeah, it was brilliant. And again, that's understanding the business. And he didn't have to, he was the biggest artist in the world, still is to me. But at that time he was really at his height. He didn't have to do anything at that point. Or every deal that he could have made based on writing and producing or whatever, they was just going to give it to him. Every
Hmm.
video they would give him millions of dollars that didn't exist at that point.
Hmm.
Like he started that whole era of real like music video. You know what I mean? And they would give him budgets, ridiculous budgets. So he could just ask for anything, he would have got it. But he was a businessman, so he was watching how everything was moving and who was rich and who, was not.
Right.
So,
So that's the commonality between Prince and Michael, both from the
hmm
Midwest and being artists of the business, students of it, I should say.
hmm
And then knowing that, okay, it's like Vegas. The house always wins. Let me go
hmm
ahead, hit my lick, but just tell other people that's coming in, here's how you can get your lick too and not
right.
roll snake eyes.
Yep, exactly. And um, they were at the height of the game. They were dropping jewels along the way. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people like Beyonce, and they're very, very smart. You know what I'm saying? Very
Mm-hmm.
smart, like business wise. Like they're making big moves and they're in control of a lot of what they do on that level.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that didn't exist before. Like when you had like back in the day with who were the bigger artists back then, like I guess Aretha, Diana Ross, and all those people, they
Mm-hmm.
weren't able to get into spaces like that and do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They just relied on what they were given and what they were told. They did what they were told.
Right. And did Michael have any influence on you artist as an artist and also as a businessman?
Definitely, I think for anybody who started to sing, rap, dance, act, choreograph, videographer, Michael have to have had some impact on you, especially after Thriller, even going back to Off the Wall, because again, he opened a lot of those doors that did not exist. You didn't have choreographers or videographers. Now you can find a videographer in every 10 blocks. You know what I'm saying? Somebody's shooting videos or movies or whatever. And just dancers and all that stuff didn't exist. So now you have every video got dancers in it now, like
Mm,
trained dancers. So they got
yeah.
jobs now because he started that trend. So yeah, for sure. Um, as a kid, I was listening. Everybody was listening to Thriller. It was huge. I never got the glove. I never got the jacket. I never did all of that. But his music just stayed on repeat for
Mm,
everybody in my house,
mm,
everybody in the block, everybody at school. It was
mm.
just kind of that thing. And I still play a lot of his stuff to this day.
Yeah, somebody was probably blasting Thriller Bad Dangerous from a car that they probably got at Eastern Motors, where your job's your credit. Fords,
Yeah,
Honda, Chevy, Beamers, and
exactly.
minivans over 600 car. If you
Yeah,
know, you know.
yeah,
So,
I definitely know that one.
yeah, yeah. If
Yeah,
you're from the DMV, then you know all about Eastern Motors. So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to go back to you mentioned Big Lass. She did the choreography for the Want You
Yes.
Back video, right?
Yep.
And also, if you know, if you look at the intro for Living Single, she's the dancer in the background for
Yes.
Living Single. So, what was it like once you saw Big Lass take off, with her choreography and everything, and then hosting Rap City along with Joe
Oh
Claire,
yeah, yeah,
and just
yeah,
seeing
yeah.
where it's like, yo, she did our choreo, now she's, on BT doing the thing.
Well, she was already known when she got with us, right? So I mean, she did more after that, but
Mm,
um, she also did our stage show. So our performance, she did the video, and she also did our staging for our show. Um, but she was incredible. She is an incredible person. Like, you see people, who you know that they're going to blow. You know, everybody's going to like them. Everybody's going to want to work with them. She was that type of person. Great personality. She would come out and support us, even if she wasn't working. And so that was just as big as Wendy Williams for us, and just as big as SWV, because to get to know her is like, wow, she's like somebody, like if you come across her today, she's like, oh hey, everything's like it was way back then.
mm.
So
Not
she's a
Hollywood.
great person. Yeah.
Yeah, not
Not
Hollywood,
Hollywood at
not
all.
not
No,
not phony style. But like,
no,
hey,
no.
I don't remember just like, and that's the
Nope.
key to staying, being booked, busy, and blessed in this business.
Yeah.
Relationships, because the feet is connected to the butt. You may have to kiss them
Yeah,
all, so don't step
exactly.
on it
But
and don't burn no bridges either.
exactly. And she was a genuine person too, so it wasn't put on at all. That's who she was. She was just a nice person. She a helpful person, kind person, a likable person, just one
Mm,
of those people that when you get to know, you're like, wow, she is really cool. And
right.
she really is.
Right, right. And how integral was it for you guys to have BET right in your backyard, because they were still headquartered in DC at the time, and knowing, hey, we right down the road, we could just go down to BET Studios, hop on Video LP, hop on Video
Yeah.
Soul, Teen Summit, and just knowing that the hub for Black culture was right there, which is a
Yeah,
stone's throw away down 495.
but it didn't feel like that though, right?
Mm-hmm,
Because it's not like you can just walk up to it and go in, go in the building. But for us, that was a part of the moving around fast. So we weren't coming from home to go there. We were coming from wherever we were to
mm-hmm,
fly in to do it, and then fly back out and to do something else. So it didn't feel as homely as it may have seemed, because we lived a lot. We would come close to the area and couldn't even go to our house. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm,
So it was like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So I've only been to BET to do those shows, and that was kind of it.
mm-hmm,
And we were in and out. We were on to the next thing. So it never felt like you can literally be in your same city and never get to go to your house, because you're
mm-hmm.
only there to do the show and then fly right back out,
So pretty much
or go back out.
yeah, so you're living out of a suitcase, really.
Yeah, pretty much. I wouldn't even unpack. Like some of the guys would unpack. I was like, I just pick stuff right out the suitcase, because I'm like, I don't feel like packing this back up. So I'll just grab
Mm,
what I need and go.
yeah, and depending on your budget, some of y'all had to probably bunk up. Hopefully, if you didn't bunk up, there wasn't any after hour activities. If you know, you
No.
know. I would have paid my good money. Say, hey, let me go ahead and get my own room, because I know so and so may say I'm in room 111 or room
Right, right.
333 after the show, and
No, we
it'll be
didn't.
some
Yeah,
don't forget the pumps activity. If you know, you
yeah.
know.
We didn't have it. Was That was definitely going on, but with our group, we were just so busy that a lot of times we were in a room overnight, and that was it. So you had time to sleep, and that was kind of it. Now, if anything else happened, I'm not privy to that information. You know what I'm saying?
Of
But
course.
I knew other groups were definitely, other people were definitely doing it. That's the road life. So
Yeah, yes.
yeah,
Being in the 90s, especially when you're on the top of the world, you got ladies throwing themselves at you, throwing
that
bras,
definitely
throwing
happened.
panties, throwing
Definitely
other
happened.
things, slipping stuff on the stage, and you eyeing her. And okay, fourth row, center, third row, steady cooling, and then lights on, she was gone. And we know that it was a heartbreak after that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of songs are written about stuff like that.
Yeah,
Dirty Diana was one of them. You know what I'm saying? Billie Jean.
right.
So, but that's the game. Like it's one of them things where just coming from the city and just like you jump the fence so quick. Like everything happens so fast. Can you imagine? Like just all of a sudden you get signed in the studio, record come out, do a show, all the girls are screaming and chasing you.
Hmm.
Like you have to kind of wrap your brain around what that is.
Right.
And it doesn't go away because that happens every show, every
Hmm.
time. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just nuts. It was like stuff, people writing you letters, people doing crazy stuff. Just, it was just an interesting experience.
Yeah, and paying that 11.95 plus shipping and handling to join somebody's fan club.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this one girl is from, I remember her from Louisiana. I don't know how she got my number. I don't know how she got my address, but she sent me a birthday cake in the mail.
Oh,
And she actually flew to Baltimore. And I actually talked to her on the phone for, just I'm thinking, okay, we can be cool, you know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
And she actually flew to Baltimore to the Inner Harbor, and she called and she said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything." She said, "I'm at the Inner Harbor." I was like, "Okay." Like, I don't think that's a good idea.
Nah, nah, man.
But it was crazy. That's when I was like, okay, yeah, you can't be so friendly
Nah,
all the time.
nah, man. 90s and 80s was stalker behavior. I mean, we
Yeah,
had
yeah,
phone
it definitely
books where
was.
people's phone numbers and addresses were listed. People calling payphones, and you ain't had no call ID. So the only way you wanted to block somebody was take that phone off the hook or unhook it.
Yeah, I'm sure we all had our share of that in the group. I definitely know I did, and I can tell you some stories, but
Right.
another show.
Of course. So I'm wondering, do you keep in touch still with any of the other members of the group, or is everybody just off doing their own things at this
I
point?
think, well, everybody's older now. It's remember we got together. We weren't really like we didn't grow up together as friends for the
Right.
most part. And everybody's doing their own thing. Every now and then you'll kind of come across somebody on social media. I definitely support them. I feel support coming from some of them. So yeah, it's a job. We did the
Right.
job, and you kind of move on. But definitely, it's supportive. I remember I was so excited when Prophet Jones came out, when Lifetime came out, when bought the album. I don't even think they know that, but and I've talked to Hollywood since then, maybe a couple years ago. I've never even said that, but I love the album because I love their voices. Like, when you grow up in a situation like that, I wasn't, like I said, I didn't grow up as a singer, so they can sing. Like they're soul voices. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Stacey Lattisaw was a soul singer. Her brother's a soul singer. Hollywood, he's a soul singer. And so when I hear them, like, wow, I get to learn
mm,
from them in real time, like sitting right here with them and harmonizing with them. So I never even expressed that thing because you just want to fit in and do the job.
right.
Um, but I played the album because I love their voices, and
Right.
they're some incredible singers. So like I said, they do stuff, I'm supportive. When I do stuff, they're supportive. So it's kind of it, like 'cause it's been a long time ago. So
Right.
you know.
Right. Right. So what's your journey like on the indie circuit, and tell us about the new single that just dropped.
So it's been interesting. I had a single out in 2007, Other Side of the Bed, which did well at radio, indie wise, especially on some FM stuff. So I was excited about that because, as an independent artist, especially then, it's hard to crack radio. You got to come in with some, big promotion, big, whatever plans or whatever. And so we were able to do that. The team I was working with then. Um, then fast forward, I had to take a break. Like I said, the business starts getting in the way. I just said, let me just kind of chill out for a minute. And I just started writing music. I didn't write with any intention of releasing anything. Um, and just because I love to write, and I had my own studio, so I was just at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, down in there just working. And eventually it turned into having about 20, 30 songs, and it turned into an album. So I decided to put it out. It's kind of started the whole journey of, um, because this independent music world is incredible, right? I didn't even know it was independent stations out there by the thousands of stations. And so once it dropped, people start picking it up. And then during the pandemic, again, I was recording, and I was pandemic happened. I was like, you know what? Let me just not put anything out. I'm just kind of done. We're in this space. The world is in this space. I'm just kind of focused on just staying alive. You know what I mean? Because
Mm.
at that point, we didn't know what the pandemic was going to do, what was happening. People were dying or whatever. And I would get on Facebook, I would get messages from radio people say, "Hey, you, when are you dropping new music?" I was like, okay. So I talked to my the engineer that I work with in South Carolina, and he's like, "Hey, go with this record, always, forever and always," and we did. And the next day that and I dropped it, the next day I got a message online from a radio guy said, "Hey, you need a promoter," and he sent me somebody's name and information. By the end of the week, the song was charting, and by the end of the month, the song was at number one.
Wow.
Right? And it moved fast. And I was like, okay, so I get it now. I'm in it. I'm back. So I'm back in it. And so I wrote another song after that, When Your Love Is, and that came out. That went to number one. I said, okay, so I said, I see where this is going. Let me just kind of, really get focused here because I felt like I was chasing it at that point because I wasn't really prepared. And then I had 4 singles to go to number one on the indie charts, in charts in America and overseas. And I dropped the album last year, Morning Sun, um, on my brother's birthday, and that went to number one too on Amazon sales charts, overseas and here. So I was really excited about that. And so it just kind of gave me the momentum to, to keep pushing and keep going. And I did videos. This incredible director, Alvin Gray, out of Baltimore. He has movies out. He does more movies than videos, but like I've been fortunate enough to get him to do mine. And we actually shot a video in the desert in Nevada. And so, we've been wherever we can go, we're gonna try to get it done. You know what I'm saying? So, but most of the other videos are done in Baltimore. Um, so yeah, so that came out. Everything was moving, holding on, which I think is probably the biggest single. Got me an award, Artist of the Year award, and I was excited about that because again, I didn't have the expectation of even putting anything out. So for that to happen, that was great. Started to take a break a little bit to kind of regroup and just started working again. And I decided, hey, I got enough stuff to really say that I got a new album and put out this first single, which came out Monday. And people are they're liking it, so I'm happy about it. Because it's always nerve-wracking when you put something out because you don't know if people are gonna like it. I feel like I liked it, but I just hope that everybody else would too. So it's really, people are really gravitating toward it. So I'm happy about that.
All right. What's the name of the single?
The single is "Fall Into These Arms." It's like, it's I say adult contemporary, but it's always kind of that thing of like, younger people can listen to it too. It's definitely old school feel, 90s. It's like that's the vibe because that's my vibe. That's where I'm at. And that's the thing about being independent is that I don't have anybody saying, oh, try to be like the new generation. I don't want to do that. I want to stick to what I know
Mm-hmm.
and what is real for me. And I want to mix the way that I hear it. I don't want, all the high EQs and all the other stuff that they're doing. I like that smooth sound, that warm
Right.
sound. So yeah,
Right.
so that's pretty much. So it's Fall Into These Arms is out now on all the platforms. We just wrapped the video on Tuesday, and so that should be out soon as well.
Yeah.
Shot by Alvin Gray.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. And swinging back to the '90s, in your opinion, who was the most underrated male R&B group to come out in the '90s that you felt never really got their shine that they deserved?
R&B group.
And you can throw your
I,
group in there as well.
yeah, so I was thinking because I think we had some strong material. I think that album was a really, really good album. Um, Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
Okay, good.
said
Because
you
my
guys
earbud dropped.
because the album was, dope. I think was an underrated track that
Yeah,
should have been
yeah,
a single.
yeah, and it could have been. But and I think one of the things is because it's like a potpourri of different styles of R&B, right? The whole album, like it kind of moves around, but it flows. It
Hmm.
flows through. And so for me, again, I always learn in the field, so I'm taking it all in. And so that's how, if you listen to my Morning Sun album, it's pretty much the same. It's like it flows through, but stuff is different. Like,
Right.
and it's like it's not a consistent sound. It just kind of you get a little bit of everything, but it just all works together. And I've learned that from that album, the Me to You album, because it's just like a potpourri of different types of R&B, and it just kind of flows through. Kind of, you have the heavy R&B, you have the more crossover R&B, the ballads, Ron Fair's ballad, which was definitely more pop based. Um, because it wasn't really intended for our album, but it's like I was like, okay, that's a good. I like that idea. That it's not just one sound all the way through. It's like it keeps switching up, and I think it's more interesting when that happens.
Right. Right. And I got quite a few for the groups male wise who I felt was underrated in the 90s. You guys, intro,
Yes.
the real seduction, you mine, a few good
Okay.
men.
Yes.
I'll put in phase in that category. They had that record Spend the
Yep. I
Night.
remember them.
And
I think I
then
have
the
that
other
album.
group I want to mention that I felt was underrated was Highland Place Mobsters.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with some, and I could be, but I know one of the groups. I remember the album. I think I have the album in my cabinet over there.
Yeah,
But yeah, so it was just so many groups out. Like, everybody is according to what your promotion was like, what that first record was doing.
right.
Um, and were you out there on the road? But it was just so many people out that I'm just glad that we were around enough to make it to BT, to the Apollo, to, what I'm saying, all the Soul Train, we made it to all those platforms. So um, those are like historic shows that you kind of like when you come out, that's the things that you want to get to. You
Mhm.
want to get to the Apollo, you want to get to Soul Train, and we were fortunate enough to do that.
Right. And your take on 90s R&B being so beloved, so relevant, and a lot of the younger artists now kind of use that as a reference point for their style and just putting a new twist on the sounds and the stylings that we love so much from the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's incredible because it's kind of the same with the 80s to me. Like if you go back, the template for what the 90s did was from the 80s. And now the template is from the 90s, even though we skipped a whole decade or two in between, but um it was just that nostalgic thing. Like something happened in the 90s and the
Hmm.
80s to me that was just it lifted the industry to a place that we haven't seen since,
Right.
right? I think it was bubbling up to that point from the 50s and 60s and 70s. But by the time we got to the 80s and that sense of musicality and just the hits, I mean, my playlists are usually 80s and 90s. That's
Hmm.
it. Mostly, I have some stuff sprinkled in Money Long and some other people in there too. Um, Snow Allegra and what's the guy named October London and
Hmm.
so Captain Ross. So I'm listening to a lot of the newer stuff too, but they're sprinkled in with the old stuff because the
Right.
old stuff I listen to all the time.
Yeah, because it's crazy when you think like 85, 86. That was right when R&B was in that middle zone where we're post Boogie era. We're still in the
Hmm.
smooth era of like Hush Productions and Luther, Anita, Phyllis Hyman, Sade. And
Right.
then you start to hear more of the aggressiveness of hip hop being mixed in with the
Yeah.
R&B. When
Yeah.
you had Full Force with their stuff and
Yep.
Control and Janet and how Jam and Lewis kind of
Yeah. They
sprinkled
started hitting
elements of that
heavier.
in. But the game
Yes.
changer was when Make It Last Forever dropped to 87. And when you
Yep.
heard that, along with Guy's debut
Yeah.
album,
And Teddy
I'll Be
Riley
Sure
just
is in
kind of.
effect mode, and it was like,
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
R&B has finally dropped, got some bite, and got some attitude.
Yeah, because Teddy Riley ushered in that era with those beats. It was more beat driven and just catchy. Like all the hooks were catchy, the lyrics, everything was just right and in a pocket that lasted for a while because everybody that was coming out was going after that sound.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it just changed the game. It shifted. And we also had Babyface too, because Babyface kept those ballads, those classic ballads alive, and some of those grooves as well. Terry Lewis
Right.
and Jimmy Jam the same. So they lasted throughout the 90s as well, coming from the 80s into the
Right.
90s. So it was just a different feel.
Right.
You can't put your finger on it. It's like
Right.
everybody was really good. Like you said, the talent show circuit just reminds me of the days when you would see in the 60s where people talk about they were on talent shows all the time.
Hmm.
And so that was an incredible an incredible era in music to
Yeah.
me. It was I'm stuck there kind of. So
Yeah, it was because all I can remember as a kid is hearing "Make It Last Forever," hearing
yeah, yeah.
Bride's Day album, hearing pretty much almost every cut off of "Don't Be Cruel" on the radio. And the perfect thing about that album was that LA and Babyface was able to mesh the street and the sweet with
Hmm.
Bobby, because when you listen to King of Stage, it was clear up until the title cut that MCA was looking to still market Bobby as this is Bobby from New Edition. But
Right.
once Don't Be
Yeah,
Cruel
yeah.
came out, he's like, look, I'm gonna add this hip hop edge to it. And Ellie and Babyface was able to find that sweet spot where we got the records that is pop sounding, not too poppy, but it still has that bite, that hit in it. And then of course Teddy
Right.
set it off with My Prerogative.
Yeah, and so yeah, so with Bobby, and he was pivotal in the idea of creating the bad boy image for the acts that came along. Usher was a combination of Michael and Bobby. Chris Brown
Mm-hmm.
is like a new age Bobby type, because
Mm-hmm.
Chris Brown is incredible too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Bobby Brown kind of ushered in that bad boy,
Right.
era. And it was the first of a kind. You might go back to David Ruffin or somebody like that, but I'm talking about like really out there and like, image wise and just music wise was able to, start something
Right.
that's still around today.
Right, right. And one R&B singer that I think doesn't get his due, he had to go on The Masked Singer to show everybody that he can sing. And he's, of course, from Baltimore, talking about Mario.
Oh yeah, Mario's incredible. He's one of, when I think of male singers, solo singers, he's in the top five for me. Him and Joe. The something in their voice, I don't know, it's something in there that's like God gave them something. You know what I'm saying? That
Mm,
everybody else does not have, don't have. But he just has this one of those voices that there's something in his voice that you feel. And to me, that's what I would always gravitate toward. That's why I like Anita Baker, Angela Bofield, Stacey Lattisaw. Something in their voice that was organic and authentic, and that only they had it. Like
mm,
whatever it was, only they had it. And
mm,
it wasn't just singing the song; it was kind of living through it, so to
mm,
speak. And Mario kind of does that with especially the right song. It's like wow, like, and same thing with Joe. It's like they lived through those songs. You can feel the emotion from the top to the bottom.
which for me, with Joe, I'm glad that once he got with Jive, he really started to find his footing, because the Everything album was great, but it was just on the
Hmm.
wrong label because he was signed to Mercury, and Mercury not
Oh
really
yeah,
known
yeah,
for being an R&B powerhouse, because the only R&B acts they had at that point was they had Shamari and they had
yeah.
Small Change, who was a
Oh,
co-ed group based out of Philly. And
okay.
once he switched over from Mercury to Drive, that's where he found his footing. And then of course with Mario, Mario's always had pipes, but of course once he hooked up with Neo for Let Me Love You and all the material after that, everybody's like, okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah. And he was
he's
young
he,
again. He
he's a
was really
problem.
young singing like that. Yeah, yeah. He was young singing like that, and that's the thing. So that for me, when I hear people, it's like, what am I feeling when I hear them? And
Mm,
that's, if you hear my playlist, you're gonna either cry, laugh, go try to get a girlfriend or something. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna feel, I feel my way through it all, and that's like, certain songs I can't listen to because it would be emotional, like
mm,
Always and Forever. I just can't play that song
right.
because to me it's like, wow, that is something in it that's just real and this that's kind of hits you.
Mm,
And same thing with Shaka Khan's Through the Fire. It's just I can't just play it at any given moment. I have to be in a particular space to listen to
hmm Yeah, and then mentioned on the female side, I gotta put Stacey Lattisaw up there as well, because like we mentioned earlier, she was young with those
it.
big vocals. When you listen to Let Me Be Your Angel, Love on a Two-Way Street, Perfect
Yep.
Combination, Attacking the Name Game, which was sampled by
Yeah.
Mariah Carey for Heartbreaker, and then Got What You Need, and then of course Where Do We Go From Here with her and Johnny, and
Yeah.
how you like, oh,
And even the beat cuts, like with her, like even the beat cuts. One of my favorite songs is called My Love on, I forget the album, but because it's one of the greatest, I think it's one of the greatest hits. But I still play that to this day because she was young when she sang it. It's stripped back. It's just her and very few instruments. And her voice was just so innocent
mm,
and skilled as a young person and the emotion just came through, and it was the perfect song, the perfect voice. Um, and I play it to this day because it's something, like I said, God gives certain people something. The
right,
right producers come along who have that magic, and they share their magic, and they give it to us.
right, and
And
how
that song for me is one of my top five favorite songs.
yeah, and how tough do you think it is for a writer and a producer when you get somebody that young with a vocal prowess that's more than their age, and you can't write stuff that's too kiddie because it won't match the vocals, but
Right.
you got to have something that's in that pocket.
Yeah, she stayed in the pocket though. Who like it was great to do the remakes when she was young. But it's again, it's something in her voice because if you hear the original and then you hear that one, like, wow, she is really hanging with these grown folk at 12 years old. That's crazy. And again, growing up, there wasn't a lot of music stars young, so imagine being a child yourself and everybody you listen to is grown. So here comes Stacy, here comes the audition, here comes, you know, Todd Bridges on Different Strokes, and Janet and Penny, from good as Penny from Good Times, and Kim Fields, and you start seeing people who are young and who look like you, and who are really talented. And I think Stacy was kind of in that lane as a soloist and as a female artist by herself. There was no other young artist that age out for a
Mm,
long time, I think until Tracy Spencer came out.
yeah, who vocally is no slouch yourself.
Right, exactly. And so, and you have to, if you're going to get back then, if you're going to be out there, you swing with the heavy hitters. You got Tina Turner on the radio, Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston's on the radio, all these people on the radio, you got to hang with them. And Stacey was hanging with them, and she was top tier with
Mm,
them. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And that was incredible. And to even to get to meet her, I was like, wow, I've never, again, a lot of these conversations I never even had with her or anybody about it because, we were there to do what
right.
we were supposed to do. But to me, she was one of those people early on that was like, wow, this is possible. This is real. This could be real.
Wow, yeah, because the 80s, it was like the start of that youth movement. Like you said, all of the young singers coming in, and then once New Jack Swing really took off, music really got young. Because if you go back and listen to music
Yeah,
from 60s, 70s, it didn't really have that young attitude feel. And when the 80s
yeah.
hit, it was 40 young, body young, especially when Teddy exploded.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then you started getting even past that, you would get like with Mario and I think he was like 15, 16, Usher was 15, Brandy was about 14, 15, Monica was young. And so I think in the 90s you started getting those young acts more. But and I think because people would always feel like, oh, it would be a hassle to deal with children, right? In this disciplined space, you have to be ready. You have to be on point. You have to be on time. You have to be take direction well. You have to be able to do stuff over and over and over again until it's right. And then you have to be able to still do your school stuff. You still have to go through all of that. You got to deal with the parents. So I think a lot of times people didn't want to deal with that. I knew that was the issue with the Jacksons, if I remember correctly. I think Barry Gordy didn't want to really have to deal with that
Mm-hmm.
part of it. But again, it's incredible when you have artists that are that good, that young, and who can
Mm-hmm.
sustain the test of time. Even now,
Right.
Brandy and Monica going on tour, and they were child stars.
Yep.
Usher
And
just came off a tour; he was a child star, so they're
mhm.
able to sustain it all these years.
Right. And it's crazy to think when you start off the game young as kids to where, you're still standing, still celebrated, still,
Hmm.
being a legacy. And we mentioned New Edition earlier, how they all came into the game as kids, with Candy Girl 83,
Hmm.
Johnny solely, and then coming into New Edition and to see now still touring, had the Vegas residency, and still being celebrated and loved. And they're really
Yep.
one of the first groups where you literally got to see them grow up
Yeah,
in front
exactly.
of
Well,
you.
we grew up with them, right? We grew up with them. And
Hmm.
so, and it's interesting because I don't think I've been to anybody under 40 concert. I just, because it's a different generation. But I've been to New Edition's concert, I've been to Janet's concert, I've been to um, Anita Baker's concert, I've been to those people because I know what it is. I know the music, the crowd, I know what to expect. Um, but it was an incredible time for music,
Hmm.
And there's, like you said, they're still relevant. Beyonce just came off the tour. She was a child star.
Right.
Rihanna's a child star. So it's like they are still relevant today.
Right, right. And last question, I want to get you out of here on this. Do you think the idea of the group is still viable, seeing with the nature of social media, how it's more catered to individualism, me, me, me? Do you still think groups still have a place in music? And do you think it's more difficult now to put together a group because everybody is so focused on me, me, me?
Um, I don't see many. I think you're right. I think everybody will come into the group with the intention of going solo because it's easy to do. Um, I guess it would be the right group. Has to be the right group. SWV is still around. For me, I'm just looking at the groups of my era. In Vogue is still around, and so it's good to see groups. It's good to see that energy on stage. New Edition still around. But I think we passed that era. I think this is the solo era. I think it's easier to do solo stuff. As a independent artist, especially because everybody's going indie now. Um, it's easy to put your own ideas out there without having to collaborate with three or four other people.
Right,
You know what I mean? Because they can put their own stuff out. It's like, okay, I want to do this, then that's what they'll go do. And I want to do this, then that's what I'll do. So I can't see myself in the group anymore. I think it was a good stepping stone. It was a great school to learn the business and the industry. And but what I'm doing now, I think creatively, business wise, and it's better for
right,
me to
right.
not have to collaborate with other people on that because I have a vision of what I want to do and how I want to execute it. And then one somebody else's idea, they may have a different vision. And so, and they should I get it. But I don't know, we have to be the right group. I think B2K came back together on the BT Awards.
Hmm.
And so they might be doing something again. So maybe they might kind of get people to the younger generation too, because this younger generation is not growing up on groups. They're not growing up on
Right.
groups. So they don't have a need for it. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And then mentioning how because of the New Edition miniseries, you're seeing a lot of young kids imitating New
Hmm.
Edition. And it seems like by looking at that, they want a group. It has to be the right group. And there's a show on Netflix that's out
Yes.
called Building the Band, where it's a mix
Oh, okay.
between The Voice, American Idol, Love is Blind, X Factor, making the
Oh, wow.
band, where you go into a booth and you're picking people blind to be in your group. And it's hosted by AJ from Backstreet Boys. They had Tony
Okay.
Award winning Nicole Scherzinger on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Liam Payne, rest in peace, from One Direction, and Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child, and also
Okay.
seeing the K-pop movement with BTS and
Yeah,
Twice and
yeah. Yeah.
everything. It shows that groups can still work. Groups
Yeah.
will always be around because as long as teenagers are born, especially teenage
Yeah.
girls, there's always going to be a market for a group.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially pop groups. You see more pop groups, but for me, I think it would be exciting to see an R&B group.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? A new school R&B group who's really killing it.
Right.
Who really has all that old school flair to them, like real can really sing, can really dance, can really, imaging, all that stuff is female and male groups. It would be really nice to see that trend come back. But unfortunately, like Camila, she was a part of the group that Simon Cowell put together, the four girls, I think, and she
Uh,
went solo like
Fifth
long
Harmony.
at the first album. So Cabello, Camila Cabello, or something
Yeah,
like that.
Camila Cabello from Fifth Harmony.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, she went solo first after the first album. So it's like they didn't stay together long after that. And I thought they were a really good group, but again, everybody will have different visions and different, ideas about what they want to do. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Yeah, we'll see. And that's what gives New Edition, once again, all the respect because for all that they've gone through in the 40 plus years in the business and stuff that we just found out in watching the miniseries, how they kept that
Hmm.
circle super airtight,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah,
realizing at the end of the day, this is bigger than us. We could break apart, we can do our own individual things, but when all six of us come on that stage, it's us. You know, we're great together.
yeah,
We do our thing solely, and just think about the impact of all these pop and R&B groups that were influenced by us, and just how everything that they gone through would have broken any other group. But to still see
yeah,
them
yeah,
still standing and once again getting their flowers with the Vegas residency and just really starting to be appreciated by those who know but didn't really say like, man, you know, we didn't treat New Edition the way we should have
you're
years
right.
ago, and
Yeah,
said
yeah,
that it
yeah.
took the miniseries now to
Or
really
took
give
notice
them
of
their
them as
flowers.
they should have, right? Because New Edition came out in the '80s, and they were kind of like, I don't know. I think some people saw them as a novelty group, a kid group. You know what I mean? And it wasn't really until the Heartbreak album, I think it is,
Hmm.
when Johnny came into play, that they started really saying, "Oh, okay, these guys are this is real. This is not Girl, Popcorn Love, and all that stuff. This is like they really growing up." You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And so I think the generation got it, but you know what I'm saying. The industry can sometimes not really push you in a particular type of way. And they just kept moving. And I'm glad because that they're still around because they're the last of a dying breed.
Hmm.
Boys to Men, like they can still tour, they can do residencies in Vegas, and that's it. But what do we have after that? Because all the older groups before them are not able to do that anymore, or they have members that are not original members.
Hmm.
Some of them have passed away, and so it's just a different feel. But they're all here and they
Hmm.
they still killing it. Like every
Right.
song, every all the choreography, and it's like the same as it was back then. So
Right.
what else do we have?
Yeah.
They at the height of the game. So I see a lot of other groups coming back, and I'm happy about that. So, but I think we just have to kind of go back
Hmm.
because I don't know forward. I don't know what if we're going to get anything like that going forward.
Right. And if you're gonna do a group, I'm gonna tell you now, people, get in that woodshed, get in that studio, rehearse, 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 sing and run. Sing and run. I'll say it
Yeah,
one more
yeah, yeah.
time. Sing and run.
But listen though, the thing is that this generation isn't built like that anymore. Like that was the old stuff, like coming out the Motown era, like the training, the media training and all the rehearsals and stuff like that. They just go in and sing now. And if it's not, and they go in the studio, they just sing it. If it's not right, it's corrected in the studio. The producer will correct it.
Mm,
And so they don't have to work as hard as the generations previous. Like I remember recording back then, it's like a lot of times you punched it in once or twice, and that was kind of it.
mm,
And now, auto tune and they'll fix the notes or all that other stuff happens and it's quick and easy and you're in
mm,
and out the studio within an hour or two and it's like they don't so the level of work is not, I don't want to say it's not necessary anymore, but so many other skills are at play now when people do records
mm.
that the level of talent is not required. I think the biggest talent in the room is the engineer.
Right. So the bar for
You know what I
entry
mean?
is lower.
Exactly. And in a sense, and people are still talented though, for sure, but they don't have to work as hard. And a lot of times people are more natural singers, natural rappers or whatever. But would you put them against a Jay-Z or Nas? You know what I'm saying? It's not many people who you would put
Nah,
against
nah.
that in this generation. You got Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole and people like that. But it's not many of them. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And same thing with vocally. Beyonce is the last of a dying breed to me because the level of work that she operates at,
yeah.
and the level that she operates at is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's like she learned from the old school.
Yeah.
And she's, you see it, it's like, wow, like this is it.
Mm-hmm.
What's coming that is on this level, like, that really is 100% through and through
Mm-hmm.
a list.
Yeah, because kids nowadays, if you have that Brooke Payne style of training, they're probably like,
It's
this
too
ain't it.
much.
This ain't
It's
it.
too much. It's too much to watch. It's too much to listen to. All the riffing and runs and stuff is too much. And the simpler the better. The music, the simpler the better. I'm listening, like in our era, we have in songs you would have bridges that will modulate, and then you had the end would change, and it would fade out a particular type of way. Now it just goes straight across, like the
Right,
beat just loops,
right,
and everything just repeats, and it just has
right,
to be catchy, and that's it.
right,
It's a
right,
hit.
right. And one person I want to mention before we go that I feel doesn't get his just due for what he did, Kyle West.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah. That whole Albie Shore era was incredible.
I mean,
Like
his
again, another
chords
one,
crazy.
a one of one. Like there's no other Albie Shore. Well, again, after Albie Shore, you would start getting people like that. Different sound, of course, but Albie Shore was a one-off, like the beginning of something.
Hmm.
So he's again, he whatever he wants to do, he can put out a record if he wants. So I think it could be still relevant.
Hmm. Yeah, night and day. You can still bump it to this day.
Yep.
And Kyle West, some of the prettiest chords I've
Yeah.
heard. I mean, the
Yep.
melodies, crazy chords, crazy. I mean,
And
if you
that's what
grew
made
up,
that work too.
yes,
It
sir.
made it work because you again, the right singer, the right producer, the right songs, and it's like magic. It's classics, and like again, we don't really have classics anymore.
No, we surely don't. Which is why go to your parents' tape collection, listen to the 90s, early 2000s, and all that good stuff. So before we conclude your interview, any shout outs you want to give and plug your socials?
um, Shout out just everybody who's been listening, supporting. I'm definitely grateful for that. This has been a long journey. Um, Not an easy one. But you do it with a smile on your face because it's a blessing at the same time, and I don't take it for granted. So anybody who's ever listened to what I've done and what I'm doing, um, Alvin Gray for sure, because you get people like that who you can call and they're there. Lolita Braley, same thing. She's a photographer I worked with for over 25 years, and I can call her. I have ideas, and hey, we just set up and we shoot. And we got photo shoots that I haven't even used. I just wanted to trying to get something creatively out, and we would just shoot. And other people like that, my mind, your mind is incredible because you remember everything and like in detail. So, but yeah, so they know who they are. They've been very helpful to me in this journey, and I can call certain people, Irv, my mixing guy Johnson. He's incredible. I've worked with him for over 10 years now. They know what your vision is, and they're on it. So I don't have to say nothing. I can just send the record. And it's just people like that that I'm grateful to have. Samir Singletary, who does a lot of remixes for me. He knows, so I can just I don't. He's a DJ, so he knows what he has the ear to the street, and so I'm just grateful for having people like that on the team. So but yeah, so what was the other part of that you said?
And plug
Shout
your
out.
socials. Where can people find you on social media?
Right. So I'm at Devon Howard 3000 on everything. Devon Howard 3000. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I'm there. So
All right. And you can catch this interview wherever you stream podcasts, YouTube at youtube.com/beyond the album cover, and Facebook beyond the album cover everywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big thank you, round of applause for Mr. Devon Howard for coming on beyond the album cover. Devon, thank you for coming on, and you're welcome back anytime, sir.
well, thank you for having me.
Yes,
It's a
sir.
pleasure.
Thank you.